You're going to absolutely love the second Football Fun Factory podcast. It's all about parents and their involvement from the sidelines. On today's Football Fun Factory podcast, we will be talking about parents watching their children play football. It's a subject that's been widely reported on over recent years, with incidents of an antisocial nature at an all-time high. In 2008, the FA brought in its Respect campaign after a build-up of behavioural problems in the national game. Part of this was a parents' code of conduct, which includes such statements as encouraging the players to respect the match officials and opposition and never tolerate offensive, insulting or abusive language or behaviour. Surely such things should be a given when watching children's football. But despite that, incidents of poorly behaved parents continues to rise. Of course they are a minority, and a majority of parents are just happy watching their little boy or little girl enjoying the beautiful game. But at the same time, that minority can negatively affect the experience for everyone. Or is it acceptable to shout and scream on the sideline? After all, it's your pride and joy out there, and what we all want for our children is the best for them. And it's that vocal encouragement that they need, within reason, of course. Within academy football, parents are asked to remain quiet on the sideline, which can be a challenge for parents wanting to offer some vocal encouragement. So what's the best course of action? How is it controlled? Can the emotion of some people on the side of a football pitch ever be controlled? That's what we'll be discussing today. James, tell us some of what you've experienced in your vast experience in coaching football of parents on the sideline.
Yeah, really interesting introduction. I think that really breaks down the best and worst of youth football, really. The best is children playing football with their parents on the sideline, encouraging them, clapping them, celebrating their goals. And I think when I think of that, I think of the younger age groups. I think of 5 and 6 year olds in particular. I then think of like 11-a-side grassroots football and on the sidelines and people shouting and yelling across the sides of the football pitch. But then probably the worst I've seen is a mixture of those two things, which is people yelling and shouting on the sidelines at 5 and 6 year olds. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's common. I wouldn't say it happens all the time. You could go and watch probably 10 grassroots games, but in probably at least 2 or 3 of them, you'd be really shocked and disappointed, I think, by some of the comments that come from the sidelines, from, like you say, a minority of people. I've seen academy football where it's very much a case of the parents are asked not to say anything, and then in grassroots, I think there was probably going back to me playing grassroots football, which is some time ago now, but at that time there was no real code of conduct around it. I think these recent introductions from the FA are great, and it's really brought it to light in terms of kind of what their duty and responsibility is in terms of grassroots football.
Brilliant. Johnny, you've had a huge experience in academy football where parents are more asked to stay quiet on the side of the pitch and just observe their children playing football. What's your experience?
Yeah, the majority of experiences I've had has been in academy football where children play the game and the coaches and the parents are on the sideline. What they do is essentially clap, and that's it, and that's how they sort of exercise their voice, I guess. I think sometimes a few excited parents probably give out the odd scream or cheer, but that's about it in academy football. I have experienced some pretty horrible examples of that. When I was at Cambridge United, I'll make sure that the club remains unnamed who we were playing against, but the parents from the other team were lawless. They were shouting across the pitch, and not even just at the kids, but like at the referee. And I actually, during the game, had to go over and speak to the opposing parents to try and calm them down, to explain that their behaviour was
How did that help? Did that help?
No, I just got peppered.
Surely a better situation works, right?
No, it did for me. Not so much for the ref, but the ref at the time she's only a young girl. It was like a under 11s game. She must have been 13, 14. So what they do in a lot of academy footballs, you'll probably know, but they get young referees to ref the younger ones to try and then produce those to referees of older ages. And I went over, explained to the parents that that's not acceptable, that's a child referee, that she's trying her best. And then as I walked away, I got a few rude words thrown at me, I think.
But you're used to that, though,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay. Enough of this small talk. It's time to put this subject on trial. Welcome to Chaddy's Court. In this part of the podcast, I'm again dressed up in a ridiculous judge's outfit, and I'm going to give contrasting opinions to James and Johnny. They don't know what's in these envelopes, but they are going to argue for the point, and we're going to decide who is the winner of this week's podcast. Johnny?
Thank you.
James?
Cheers, Chad.
Johnny, do you want to read out your opinion first?
Parents should have free rein to say whatever they want to on the sidelines.
James?
Parents should be silent on the sidelines and leave the coaching to the coaches.
Okie dokie. So, Johnny, I'm going to ask you first. Can you tell us your opening statement?
Just got to remind myself what it is. Cool, right. So parents should have free rein to say whatever they want on the sidelines. The parents take their children all over the country. They take them home and away, wherever they may go. So therefore, it is their right to be able to have their say on a sideline. When a child is on the pitch, the one person that knows them better than anybody else in that whole area, within a 20-mile radius, is their parent. So their parent has the right to be able to call on the pitch to give them some advice, call on the pitch to give them a little bit of encouragement. They know when they need a little bit of a push, maybe a bit of a telling off. So therefore, the parent is the best person placed at that time to give their son or daughter a little bit of encouragement or advice from the sidelines. So therefore, I think parents should have free rein to say whatever they want, whenever they want, on the sidelines of a football pitch.
Strong opening statement. Well done, Jonathan. James, over to you.
Firstly, I completely disagree with Johnny. And
You're not allowed.
I look forward to putting him on the stand and asking a few telling questions. Mine is a contrasting view that parents should be silent on the sidelines and leaving the coaching to the coaches. So ultimately, it doesn't really matter whether the child does what their parent wants them to do. And in fact, quite often what parents are doing from the sidelines is, if they are talking, they're trying to correct their mistakes. Now, as a young player, one of the number one things that you can do is make mistakes. So if you've got a parent shouting, screaming, saying whatever they want, having free rein on the sidelines, then those children aren't going to make those mistakes. Or worse, they're going to make potentially even more, because they're going to feel under pressure. They're going to feel that they're being shouted at. Quite often as well, it's the parents on the sidelines that are not just shouting about what their child's doing, it's about what other children are doing. So John, you made the point about people having free rein. They know their child better than anybody, but do they know every single other child on the team better than anybody? So I think it's really important that they leave the coaching to the coaches. The coaches are the ones that are there to coach. It completely undermines the coach if all of the parents on the sidelines are saying things. And quite often, more than often, they're saying different things. So how confusing for a young footballer to play football, be introduced to football at a young age, and then to hear contrasting views coming from all areas across the side of a football pitch in the cold wind and rain. What a terrible experience for a child playing football.
Very good. Passionate opening statement. So now I'm going to give you the opportunity, firstly, James, to put Johnny in the dock and question the man.
So Johnny,
Bring it on. No comment.
my first question to you would be, who is children's football for? Is it for the children, or is it for the parents? Because a lot of what you talked about was about the parents having the right to do kind of whatever they want, having free rein. But isn't the experience for the children, not the parents?
I think in this case, it is for everyone. The coach, the child, the parent, everyone involved in the match day experience. I think it's for everyone. They're all part of it, so therefore they all have a part to play.
So, in that vein, if everyone has a part to play, how would you balance that? Do you think it's more for the parents or more for the children?
I think obviously children's football is a big part of it, is being for the child that is attending the match. What are you trying to say, James?
I'm trying to say that if people have free rein to do whatever they want, then doesn't it become more about the parents than the children themselves?
If you're from the sideline and you're giving your son or daughter lots of encouragement, then I actually think that benefits the child on the pitch.
So I mentioned that the parents, or you mentioned that the parents know their child better than anyone. Would you say that's also true for every single other child on the team? So a scenario where there's a 7v7 football match, there's a goalkeeper, defenders, midfielder, striker. The striker is my son. I can say whatever I want. Does that mean I can also say whatever I want to the defender if he kicks the ball out of play where he should have dribbled out and passed to someone else?
You may be on the other side of the pitch to the coach, so you may have a good line of sight of what that child should have done, and you're a very experienced coach with lots of knowledge, and you're a hell of a player, may I add. Is buttering up working?
No line in court,
so I think you are well placed to offer that child some support.
What if I'm not? So what if the advice that I'm giving is wrong?
I think children then may get a different opinion, a different voice from the sideline, and then they can decide whether they make the right choices.
So just to confirm, you're saying that contrasting views from parent A, parent B and parent C is a good thing?
So when Sir Judge Chadwick played for Man United, Reading...
Man United?
Man United, Soundtown Rangers,
great
Barrington,
club.
many big clubs.
Am I right in saying that there were hundreds, thousands of people on the sideline shouting at you?
Yeah, and usually it wasn't particularly constructive, though, what was being said.
So, Johnny...
Sir Johnny!
Sir Chadwick. So, Johnny, you're saying in that instance that it's absolutely fine to do that for a 30-year-old footballer at the time?
Maybe 20 years ago.
It's okay to do the same for a 5-year-old footballer?
So
I don't see any difference between those?
So I think if there's a child that is trying to improve at being a footballer, no matter what level you get to as an adult, you have to have resilience to deal with whatever the crowd or the sideline is shouting, because that is what men's football looks like, that's what women's football and adults football looks like.
So do you feel that a 5-year-old child should have the same level of resilience as a 30-year-old footballer?
No, but the only way for them to develop resilience is to experience that, and therefore when they're going to experience it playing for Man United or for Barrington, as Sir Luke Chadwick has, he's had to develop that resilience over a number of years.
I'll stop there. Thank you for the questioning, James. Now it's time for you to step into the dock. And Johnny, you've got the opportunity to question James.
James, can you please read out your statement again?
No, because it was off the top of my head. So you should have taken notes throughout.
Okay,
so if you
fine,
don't have any questions,
I have. I've taken notes throughout.
Okay.
So you said that parents should be silent on the sidelines.
yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. The only thing is, James, life isn't silent, is it?
No, it's not. It isn't silent, but it is respectful. So when somebody's talking,
Is it respectful, James?
When somebody's talking, it's respectful to listen to what they have to say. And when someone's in the same vein, when a child is playing football, it's respectful to let them play, express themselves, have fun, enjoy themselves, and not to be shouted at by adults when you're a young child.
Of course, but if it's silent and the children are maybe running around and there's nothing from the parents, not even a round of applause or a cheer when a goal goes in, how do you think the children feel when they've maybe taken on the whole team, run around the whole team, scored a worldie, gone in the top corner, and on the sidelines you don't hear anything?
So I think you've taken what I said out of context.
You said silent.
I said they should be silent on the sidelines. Not all the time. I think it's absolutely fine to clap and cheer. And I think it's really important that people do that in line with the FA guidelines that are stated and released.
That's fantastic. It's just you've now gone back on your initial opening statement, which you said silent throughout the whole.
So
sounds like you're backtracking, James.
I didn't say silent throughout the whole, and we can rewatch the
Roll
video,
it back.
so.
We're going to need clarity on
Zip
this.
it.
I need clarity on this as the judge.
Okay.
Did you say silent? Remember, you're on that.
So
own
let's
pitch.
watch
Play
it back now.
James.
So if we play the clip now, we'll be able to see.
Please don't talk over me when I'm presiding
Sorry,
on these
salute.
proceedings. Did you say silent at the start?
I think we need to look at the evidence.
Okay.
Mine is a contrasting view that parents should be silent on the sidelines and leaving the coaching to the coaches.
There you go, JC. I told you. You said silent throughout.
Can I not?
No. I hold you in contempt of court, lying in court, and on a technicality, I don't fully believe what Johnny said, but Johnny is this week's winner.
Thanks very much, Luke.
It's a disgrace.
What a great moment.
Why he wins a Premier League winners' medal for winning the debate, I will never know. But Johnny wins, and James, I'm disappointed.
Not as disappointed as me, Luke.
Great debate, guys. Two completely contrasting views. But now let's have a quick chat about what we really think. James?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant to play football as a young player in front of your mum and dad. Like, they can be really proud of you. There's some amazing moments. So in true Football Fun Factory fashion, I think we focus on the positives, like the car journey home, they're being proud of your son or daughter when they're playing. I think that you can say and do some pretty amazing things. I think we have all experienced the worst of parents. I think that does typically happen more as children get older. But I think that parents from the sidelines should be encouraging, supportive, clap, cheer. I do think they should be able to say what they think or give advice. I think that's absolutely fine. And I think that advice and the coaching aspect should grow as children get older. But I think it's really important to be respectful, more so to the coach than anything, because ultimately the coach is the one that delivers a training session, takes that into the match at the weekend. And it's possible that then the parent says a contrasting view. I think that's just really confusing for a young child when they, for example, they take a short corner. The parent then says, what are you playing short for? Get in the box. It's like, well, in the last training session, we've been working on short corners. Yeah. And I think that then that's contradictory to what the coach has told them, and then the child ends up not knowing what to do at all.
Johnny?
Yeah, I think there has to be encouragement from parents, and there has to be a cheer when the children score, because that is like a magical moment from a child, that the crowd erupts and their parents on the sideline.
Yeah, they celebrate.
Yeah, proud as punch and all that type of thing. I think is really important. The biggest thing for me is education around the wrong stuff to say and the respect element that we touched on earlier on. Like, you'd like to think that everyone would be respectful, but there is a minority that aren't, and probably do say the wrong things, are abusive maybe to refs or opposition, or...
But is that down to education in terms of people watching football? Because I think football is such a huge game now. People watch it 4, 5, 6 times a week on the telly, see the...
Yeah.
But that's the problem, isn't it? So children replicate what they see on the TV.
The old arm up on the corner.
But you see the best and worst of that. Yeah, you see 6-year-olds taking the corner and putting both hands up.
Draft excluder on a free kick. Yeah.
Like, why are you doing those things? But then you see children like do Ronaldo's celebration when they score, and it's funny and it's brilliant, and they remember those moments forever. But then you also see like an 8-year-old like dive in the box trying to get a penalty. But then the parents mimic it too, because the parents then watch football, go to live football matches and shout at the ref. And then they turn up on the Saturday afternoon, and then the example you gave earlier, shout at a 14-year-old girl refereeing an academy game. So but then you would think in that instance that the parents would know better.
But I've seen parents, and I've done it myself, and you do get incredibly emotional on the side of the football pitch. So like watching your child play football, if they get hurt, you sort of feel it yourself. If they score a goal, you're absolutely buzzing about it and feel that joy in yourself. But also from the other end of that spectrum, you see fantastic people completely change when they're on the side of a football pitch watching their child play football. But how do you change that?
I think the coach plays a big role in that. So I think the coach at the start of each season should get the parents in for a team meeting and educate them throughout the year around what their themes and what they're, like you touched on earlier, if they do a short corner, they should let the parents know that that's what they're working on that week, or they've been working on this in training. So I think that's really important to avoid conflicting opinions throughout. And then I think it is setting down a team philosophy at the start of the year, and start when anyone new comes into the team to explain what the expectations are from parents on the sidelines. And I think then the coach plays a role in educating and reminding parents throughout the year that that's what they believe is right for their club, for the children that they're working with.
I think the challenge for any philosophy for it to be a positive thing is the buy-in of people, and I think that's where it can be quite tough, because parents are just taking it a little and to play football, go and watch them play, and to have them completely buy into that philosophy. How do you get that?
Yeah, I think that becomes really difficult when then the emotion goes beyond what happens on the pitch. It's then what happens sometimes off the pitch and who's selected, because ultimately the emotion, the biggest emotional connection or emotional decision or reaction from a parent is whether their child's playing or not. And then obviously we have substitutions and equal playing time or not equal playing time, and those things then cause problems in the relationship between the coach and the parents. And then at that point, then it becomes really difficult for the coach to then say, oh, please can we be respectful from the sidelines, I'm the coach, and those kind of messages, to get those across, when it's then, well, we're not even playing my child anyway. And ultimately someone's always going to be upset, even in like the younger age groups. And it's really, really challenging. We're really fortunate at Football Fun Factory that we see the best. We get the best from parents because we don't have matches and we don't have teams. It's training, and the philosophy is clearly about fun. So one thing that I think we do really well is communicate our philosophy. There's no quibble or query around what the philosophy is. Yeah. And actually there's some parents that decide that Football Fun Factory isn't right for their child, and that's fine. But the ones that come along are the ones that go, I just want to see them have fun. And for that reason, we don't get too much shouting through the AstroTurf fence.
And again, that sort of philosophy is absolutely brilliant, and that gets communicated incredibly well. But the biggest reason in my mind that happens is from the coaches. Yes. Because how the coaches deliver the sessions, the way that the coaches are with the children, that's how you get in with the buy-in with the parents more. Of course, it's a little bit easier because there's no fixture on a Saturday when everyone's sort of there wanting to win the game, seeing their kids play. But is it the coaches that can help the behaviour on the side of the pitch with how they are and the way that they run the club?
Yeah, I think that's what it does come down to. And when I say about a philosophy, it's important that the coach has the right philosophy and the right beliefs, and it is for fun and for the development of the children. If they are all about winning, that will create a philosophy and an environment for the children where the parents do then push the boundaries and go too far. So it does 100% come from the coach. And that's why I think if you take the positive and the best examples of it, I think speaking from parents on the sideline and them cheering and encouraging the children is brilliant. And I've seen the very best of it. I've also seen the very worst. And I think it's a little bit of education throughout for coaches in how they can best communicate those messages to parents, communication and education for coaches on having the right beliefs. And I think that then would just like bleed into the parents on the sidelines and the children. But like we said, unfortunately, there are a minority that...
Do you feel there is any... Do either of you guys feel there is any benefit from like instruction from the sideline? So obviously... This it can vary throughout different age groups, and what you talked about earlier on when we're sort of representing an opinion, it wasn't necessarily our own. You talked about, well, it needs to be real, because ultimately we're trying to prepare. You know, some children do really want to progress and develop, and they do have aspirations to get into an academy and become a professional footballer, or go on to play, even if they play semi-professional, or even for effectively a grassroots, a Sunday league team. You know. It is real that at a Sunday league team, you're not going to manage the people from the sidelines, and they are going to say whatever they want to, and you can't really interject at that point unless it gets obviously too much.
We've been on tour though, Chaddy, where there's like a stand of parents with a massive drum cheering Basel like this, and actually that environment is pretty cool, and I think a lot of the children absolutely love playing in that, and like it feels like they're walking out at Wembley Stadium, and it is like they're a professional footballer. So I think it's in Brazil where they have like flares and cages that the children play in, and all the fans on the outside are like treating it like it's a massive Barcelona versus Real Madrid game.
Yeah, I think that's like the be all and end all, isn't it? Regardless whether you're developing into a professional footballer, you're a child just playing the game for fun, is to enjoy it. So I think as soon as that noise, instruction, whatever it is from the sideline is affecting the child in a negative way, that's when it's completely wrong and it shouldn't happen. And I think there's a fine line. When I was a kid growing up playing football, my mum and dad had watched me play, but they'd never coach me from the sideline, they'd never say anything apart from done.
Did anyone? So obviously that you mentioned the kind of FA interventions and the FA trying to grab hold of what has become a problem. Was it a problem back then, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, growing up playing football? Like, was it a problem? Your parents didn't say anything, but did the other parents?
I think the biggest problems in my sort of career growing up was problems between parents of one side and parents from the other, where often because of the intensity of it would end in a physical confrontation and stuff like that, which is obviously completely wrong. From my point of view, I don't remember being negatively affected by anyone telling me what to do from the sideline, because I'd pretty much do what I thought was right. I think with my sort of children growing up, I went down a completely different route at the start, because I felt for my child to develop, I had to constantly coach them and tell them exactly what to do. And it wasn't until I realised that that was completely wrong, and they've got to find their own way and sort of make mistakes and sort of learn from that I probably negatively affected my eldest child, without a doubt, in his early experiences playing football, because I'd be constantly telling him, instructing him, telling him when he wasn't doing something right, which ended up with him for a period of time not enjoying football and not wanting me to take him to football. So I'd obviously not learned the lessons from the way that my parents were with me playing football. We just knew that I loved playing it, and just off you go and play sort of thing.
You've mentioned that a few times, where you've realised that as a football parent in the early stages, you almost sort of treated them as young professionals and trying to help them become, as good as they can be. What was it then that made the shift, where one day you went along and was like, actually, I'm going to be completely different, stood on the side of the pitch today?
It was probably when my 7-year-old son didn't want me to take him to football anymore, because my constant coaching, telling him what to do, affected his experience of it and didn't like doing it. And that broke my heart. But obviously he'd grown up watching me play, coming to the games, and sort of loved football, probably because I was a footballer. Both my children probably did. And then to see something that he'd been brought up on, that we'd grown together and loved together, and not wanting me to be a part of it, I knew that I had to completely change the way that I was in terms of football. Like, he used to come to your guys' sessions at Cambridge United, whether it was development centres or...
You shouted at me for the French, I remember.
Yeah, he used to like give him a number. They used to go in goal for a period of time, and I was even on my watch timing, and he always seemed to be in goal too much, and I'd like shout over to him.
Funny that, because he became a goalkeeper.
But that's what I'm saying. That's a mad thing. Now he's a professional footballer, a goalkeeper at the same time. So what I'm trying to say is, thank you so much for giving that opportunity. You obviously saw that, and I didn't see that. But sort of taking it too seriously, and I think that is what a lot of parents do. It's certainly what I've done. And at the end of the day, they're children. Like, they're doing it because they enjoy it. Let them enjoy it. And if you're affecting them or upsetting them or putting a damper on their experience, then you know that there's something not right there.
100%. What you said is, when it affects the children's enjoyment, that's where it's too far, isn't it? So when your son was growing up and the instructions you were giving your son was positive and they responded really well to it, then actually it does have a place, and it could be right for your son at that time. But as soon as it becomes negative and then doesn't want you to take him to football anymore, or any children on the pitch is negatively affected by it, that's when it needs to stop.
So what would be, if we were setting the guidelines, if we were the Football Association, and if we were educating parents what to do from the sidelines, what to say, what not to say, what would be our advice, do you think?
I think the number one thing for me, which I think is incredibly important, is the way that the match officials are treated, because I think that is how children grow up and learn that that's okay. And way too often I see young kids playing grassroots football, and parents will sort of complain about the referee's decision, which obviously goes onto the pitch. And when we talk about football's so much more important than just a game, isn't it? What can be developed in terms of life skills is huge from it. And I think learning them lessons at an early age, I think that needs to be cut out completely. I don't know how it's done, but in 10 years' time, there'll be no referees wanting to referee because of the abuse that they get from the sidelines, which is completely wrong. So I think that has to go completely, because that's going to help children grow up to be more respectful, to respect the referee's decision. That is the decision at the end of the day. So for me, that is a huge one, which I think could help everything else, because I think a lot of the negative talk that goes on and the emotion that builds up is because the referee makes an honest mistake, and then that changes the mood on the sideline.
So I remember I was about 17, 18, got into coaching at 16, and I was coaching on Saturday, taking the real young ones, and then the under 13s manager of the same club, he was like, "Oh, you should be a referee as well," and he tried to encourage me. And he was a referee. Yeah, he was quite a highly qualified referee, and he'd qualified he'd coached, refereed the games that I was delivering, that I was taking part in. And he said to me, go and referee this game, give you 30 quid and whatever. And I was absolutely buzzing. So went along, refereed this game and gave a penalty. And he, the ref, was shouting at me from the sidelines, "There's never a penalty! Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, surely if anyone should have a bit of empathy. I'm like this 18-year-old lad giving a penalty. I've got all the parents shouting at me. I was like, this is...
Never do this again.
I'm never doing this. I did 2 more games after that and exactly the same things happened. Obviously it wasn't the very good referee, clearly. But
you need to learn the rules, mate.
But yeah, I was just like, this is pointless. And I think so many referees must do that. I played grassroots games where it's like, come on, we need a linesman. We can't start the game. Because why would you want to do it?
Yeah. Just get abused. It's so much pressure.
You're just going to get told off, probably by your kid. So
so I think that is for me something that could help everything else, because I think a lot of the moaning starts with a referee's decision and the parents, the coaches, the players moaning about it, and then sort of in terms of the two completely contrasting views that you guys were speaking about today, I think obviously a happy medium in the middle where parents 100% should be allowed to encourage their children to play. But I think that is the key, isn't it? It's got to be of a positive nature and encouragement. 100%.
Do you think it then has to come, you talked earlier, John, about it has to come from the club, from the team and have their own philosophy? Or do you think it has to come from the Football Association or organisations like us?
I think it's everything. The problem is the FA have tried to do stuff and there are still certain coaches that come through and take it too seriously. And the FA have then tried to, the youngest age groups don't then record scores and you don't upload them anymore and those types of changes, but people then still post the score on Twitter and they've won 19-2 and it's just, it sort of defeats the object. I think if everyone thought football was for fun in those youngest age groups, then we wouldn't have any problems. So I think education for everyone, understanding that the children are kids and they need to be an environment where they learn, they have fun, they fall in love with football.
I think just on that, and I don't want to blow our own trumpets too much, but it is the Football Fun Factory podcast. But when you're sort of looking about sort of engaging children in football and at the youngest ages, and when our TOTS programme, the 2 to 5 year olds, they sort of have that first ingredient and the parents are with them on that, having them first experiences with the kids. And I think that education through that is huge for them when they go on to start playing games and playing for grassroots clubs.
Yeah, I think anyone that came along to our Football Fun Development sessions and saw the parents around the perimeter of the AstroTurf fence encouraging, clapping, cheering, never really shouting, "Oh, you should have passed, you should have done this, why aren't you, why the short corner," those kind of things, that then goes into the grassroots game. I think it'd be like, this is different. I think it'd be a bit of a shock to the system. I think that it's really important that the why, the philosophy comes out. So if you just go to people with a load of directives and a load of rules, you should do this silent football weekend. I agree with all those things. I think they're all great interventions. But for me, what's more important is the why. Why are we actually doing that? Why are we trying to condition what the parents are saying and doing from the sidelines? And sometimes then it is just a rule, a regulation. I think everyone knows the rough reason why, but it's almost like, how compelling are we making that? How much are we getting that message across? And then it is pain points. Like if you put out it'd be so much better rather than going, here's the rules and regulations, to here's 6-year-old Billy, I don't want to play football anymore because mum shouts at me from the sidelines. And it's just like, that's so much more compelling and that will always stay with you. So I think those emotive storytelling things are really important.
Yeah, 100%. But it's sort of getting that message to the masses, isn't it? It's getting the buy-in. I mean, it's all very well us having a chat about it here today, but there's still so much to do to change it. And probably the biggest challenge is people like me back in the day that didn't think they were doing anything wrong, and that's how they get the best out of their child and see them develop. And until we change the education on that to the masses, not just those that are lucky enough to do courses here, there and everywhere, it's not really going to change, is it?
So here's an idea. And
here we go.
Football Fun Factory loves to, make a positive influence on the game.
Yeah.
And what if, I'm burning the boats by saying this on the podcast, but what if we could do some sort of free online course, complete this, watch these videos, answer these questions, learn these things for football parents, so that if we made that available for all the parents at Football Fun Factory to undergo, how to be a brilliant football parent, what things to say in the car on the way home, all those kind of things to educate people, and then make it more widely available for parents of children that don't attend the Football Fun Factory.
I think it sounds like a good idea. I think the FA have tried stuff like that. I think as long as every single parent watched it, then you would eradicate the issue and eradicate the problem that we're discussing today.
But that's never going to happen,
Exactly.
is it? But if you can even help one person or try and educate one person, it's one more person who's giving their child having a brilliant experience in football.
Write that idea down, JC. Let's do it.
Exactly. Full of ideas.
Cool. Great idea. Let's finish on that. And should we have some listeners' questions?
I thought I was in charge.
I'm in charge now.
Let's have some listeners' questions. Okay, let's go with some listeners' questions. Johnny, I'll throw the first one to you from Kyle. In terms of coaching, what do you do in your delivery to inspire children to develop a passion and fall in love with the game? What a fantastic
question. So the biggest thing is I coach with a smile on my face, coach with loads of energy and enthusiasm, and I try and get that to rub off onto the children that I coach. And I think that's the easiest and the simplest way to do it, is just to be full of life, love football yourself, show the children how passionate you are, and that will, without doubt, bleed through your session onto the children that you coach.
James, anything to add on that?
Yeah, when I began coaching, I went to every session with 3 coaching points that I wanted to get across in the delivery of the session, because that was the way back in the day. Quite often people had a little cue card in their pocket. Always like, what do I need to say next? And for me, that isn't coaching. Coaching is coaching what you see. Of course, you can give developmental feedback, technical, tactical information, but I think that's based on what you see and can be very, very basic, even for 12, 13, 14-year-old children. That can just be facilitating an environment where everyone gets loads of touches of the ball. I just think back to when I played football as a child. I hated it when I didn't have a ball, and I loved it when I did have a ball at my feet. So I think it's really simple, and that's why in all of our sessions we make sure that every child gets loads of touches, because that's what you're there to do, right?
100%. I think what you say as well, I think it's so easy to see when a coach is enjoying what they're doing. They love coaching. The children tend to follow suit and have a lot of fun as well.
Well, we obviously hold lots of coaching observations as people come on board as a head coach here at Football Fun Factory, and that's one of the number one things we look for. How much are they enjoying it? Because we're talking about someone coming on board with us, obviously, to run the franchise and to operate the sessions, but in doing so, we want to make sure they're going to enjoy that not do that because of it's a business opportunity or a franchise. Do it because they love it. They'll be more successful with the business and the franchise bit, but that will take care of itself if they turn up with a smile on their face every week, because every parent around the outside of the pitch is going, my child loves this, he loves it, she loves it, coaching the sessions. So I think that's really important too. It really, like I said, rubs off, but it's really important that that's genuine and authentic, because the more you encourage the children, inspire the children in that way with a big smile on your face, every child walks away with a big smile 100%. On theirs.
Brilliant. Okay, I've got a question from Blair, really interesting one. I'll throw it to you first, James. Which player, past or present, do you think would make a brilliant FFF head coach and why?
Wow.
Glad I got some time to think about it.
Paul Gascoigne.
I was going to say
Gazza.
Yeah,
that was in my mind.
I was going to say Gazza.
Not all aspects of his career, but yeah, I just think those little clips you see of Gazza training. Just like there's one where he runs out with who did they? Trying to think where he was. Did they sign David Ginola or someone? He ran out to train him with a big long
yeah.
Just stuff like that. I just think if a Football Fun Factory coach turned up in a wig, you come to the podcast and you're wearing a judge's outfit, I just think that's so Football Fun Factory. Gazza, it's just his approach to just fun and enjoyment. Where that's even more compelling, to do that at the highest level. To see those little clips of him on the football pitch playing at Wembley Stadium, and he's laughing and joking with the opposition, and he's got fun and enjoyment running through his veins.
Great answer. John?
I've got 2.
You can only give me one.
Tough. I'm doing 2. Heung-min Son from Spurs.
Yeah.
Always has a smile on his face, loves football. I think that would, as I said earlier on...
The second one can't be a Spurs player.
Okay, fine. The second one, is the Tottenham manager, Ange.
Oh my God!
I think.
Welcome to the Tottenham podcast with Johnny Martin.
You know when he talks about life skills, about developing people. That's very much our ethos, isn't it? We want to use football as a vehicle for child development. I think he'd be a pretty good role model to the children that attended his sessions.
Very good.
When he gets sacked.
He's not going to get
talk
sacked.
about that.
Spurs are going to win the league.
I'm going to go with an old teammate of mine called David Beckham.
Oh, here you go. Hold on.
My mate Bex.
Let me just pick up that name you dropped.
I think in terms of what he represents, the way that he represented the football clubs he played for, obviously Manchester United, was always an incredible ambassador, such a hard trainer, but just loved football, loved playing football so much, always the last player out in training, always the last to come back in because he enjoyed playing so much. Plus, he'd really build the brand. And I think it'd be a real popular one with the mums and the parents on the courses. Okay, one last question. I'll throw one in there. From Joe, what are your earliest and best memories of football from your childhood, Johnny?
Great question. One that always sticks out to me, and you two have heard me say this before, but getting Ian Walker's water bottle, the first ever Spurs game I went to go watch Spurs v Chelsea. We lost 1-0. The steward could see that I was a bit upset, so she ran up to Ian Walker, grabbed his water bottle and gave it to me. And even though I was disappointed that Spurs lost, I came from my first ever game with professional footballers' water bottle, albeit Ian Walker's, and that, I think, for me, started my love for going to football, going to watch games. I did lose it a week later, though.
I think they actually lost that game due to his dehydration.
James?
You'll have to remind me of the question, Luke. Sorry.
What is your earliest and best memory of playing football?
Playing football.
As a child?
Playing football.
Yeah,
sorry.
so Johnny answered a completely different question.
Good answer, though. Good answer.
We'll cut that, Hollywood.
Yeah, cut that. Go to me first. So, earliest memory of playing football was I went to a thing, it was just called mini soccer, so it wasn't like the mini soccer league, it was just called mini soccer. It was at Lynn Sport in Kings Lynn on this big rec, and there were about 60 kids, and they just put us into matches, and we just played games. And I remember, even at that age, I'm probably 5 or 6, I was smart enough to work out all the coaches didn't really want to be there, and they were all just like not really involved and kind of just facilitating probably a load of 16, 17-year-old lads and whatnot. But I remember this kid, and his name was Austin, and he scored a goal.
This is quality.
And he just ran. You know when kids run off and they give it the big one in their celebration? He just ran, and he just kept running. He just kept running and running. And
Brilliant.
3 minutes later, the game's going on, and he's still celebrating. And it ended with him sliding on his knees. And we were like, that's it, the celebration's now over. And then he just did this weird punching thing, uppercuts, just going punch in the air. And he was just doing that for 30 seconds. So,
Austin, if you're watching the podcast,
get in touch.
Austin, we'd love you as a guest on our podcast.
I think for me, it would have been my first ever game of organised football for Melbourne Tigers against a team in Royston called St Thomas Colts. Remember getting to the game, and the first ever time I'd played a game with nets in the goals, and it absolutely blew my mind to know if I scored a goal today, it would hit the net. And we drew the game 1-1, and I managed to score our goal. And to this day, it was one of the most amazing feelings I've ever felt. To see the ball hit the back of the net.
Class.
Great days. Didn't happen much more after that, but that was a great day. Johnny, James, thank you. Thank you for listening or watching, and we'll catch you next time on the Football Fun Factory podcast.